And what in heaven's name brought you to Casablanca?
My health. I came to Casablanca for the waters.
The waters? What waters? We're in the desert.
I was misinformed.
He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
You're tearing me apart!
What?
You say one thing, he says another, and everybody changes back again!
We love when he's on the program with us. He's John Hinderaker, president of the Center for the American Experiment. John, thank you very much for coming on the program.
Always great to be with you, Al.
Wife and I discussing actually your annual dinner gala coming up this next week. Not that we do that a lot. I'm going to be honest, it seems strange, but my wife has a secret crush on Scott Jennings. You know, you start finding him on your feed, and she's like, "Oh, look what he said today." And and I said, "Yeah, he's doing, the big gala this year. He's not coming to town." Yes, he is. So we talk about this whole thing. We got to go. My son graduates college that same day. I'm going to miss it. I don't want other people to miss it. My wife, I think she took pause. Do we go to kids' graduation, or do we go to this?
Well, we
she took pause.
That, Al. Today is the last day you can buy tickets.
I'm glad we
still have some tickets available, but if any of our listeners want to come to our annual dinner on Saturday at the Hilton Hotel in downtown Minneapolis, go to americanexperiment.org and click the tab at the top where it says events, and you can go to a page where you can get tickets. Today is the last day that's possible. Scott Jennings, is really the man of the hour in new media and in conservative media. He's on CNN. He's the only conservative on that whole news network. And he's on a lot of shows. He's got a show in the evening that he co-hosts, but he pops up during the day, too, on other CNN shows. And it's always Scott Jennings against two or three liberals or a couple of liberals and a liberal guest. And he really exemplifies, he's really the best at the whole new media thing, because so he'll be on a CNN program, and I don't know how many people see it live. CNN's ratings aren't
50,000.
Maybe 50,000 people, something like that, actually watch the program. But the next day, clips from the program where Scott Jennings is torching Lib will be all over Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and so on. And millions of people see those clips. It's really an interesting phenomenon, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to have Scott Jennings as our annual dinner speaker.
You guys, did you not do a podcast with him yet, or you were going to?
Yeah, I interviewed Scott on the American Experiment podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago. He's a very nice guy, as you kind of get that feeling when you see him on television. And we had a real fun conversation on the podcast, and we're going to do something different. I'm going to let a little cat out of the bag.
Okay.
Al, I'm not supposed to do this, but we're going to do something a little different this year. We're going to handle the Q&A a little differently from how we've done it in the past or how anyone has done it in the past.
Oh, I love this. Oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah. So if any of our listeners are curious as to how that's going to work, go to americanexperiment.org, and it's not quite too late to sign up for tickets.
All right. And one last thing, if you could for me, because the next week when we talk about this, I want to find out how this went. I want to find out how that guy got there. I don't know if you know. How does this conservative guy who's got a good sense of humor and strong backbone, like say he's 4 or 5 people ripping him and he just sits there and takes it and zing. How does he get to CNN? How did he apply for that gig? It's amazing to me. He does it well. You didn't see it coming.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Yep.
He was a political operative. He worked in the second Bush administration.
Okay.
He worked for Mitch McConnell for some time. He runs a consulting firm out of Kentucky, which is where he's from. He kind of came up that way, along the political operative side. And then at some point, he got into media and he landed this job at CNN. And I'm sure they had no idea how big he was going to become, when he started out. Yeah. But they've signed him to a big new contract, and he's having fun.
All right, get yourself to americanexperiment.org or sign up today if you want to get there. One small thing, I don't think it's small, but before we get into the big stuff with the legislature, Governor Walz came out last week, early this week, I forget, 84.2% of our kids graduated from high school this year. Best ever. We look at all the demographics, the race, the money they make, everything. Everyone's up, John. There isn't a category. This is undeniably the greatest thing ever. And someone even on this program said, well, wasn't it 6 months ago? We might have talked about it. Weren't you guys talking about the fact that 50% of 11th graders can't do reading and math? Did they all get tutors? Did the world go get tutors, John? Is that how they got there?
Actually, Al, over half of all of the kids in Minnesota's public schools can neither read nor do math at grade level. The statistic on 11th graders, 64% of 11th graders in Minnesota can't do math at grade level. So you can have a high graduation rate. You just lower your standards. If a kid is still there, if he shows up to walk across the stage, you'll give him a diploma. It doesn't mean anything. And the fact that these people are celebrating this graduation rate at a time when the quality of our public schools is absolutely terrible is really shameful.
Are you able to put yourself in their shoes, the left shoes? I look at this governor, right? He's the education governor. I was a teacher. I'm here for children. And every metric from the day he showed up until now has gone down, except the graduation rate. How do they twist that? How does a guy like Governor Walz in any way go out and say, he should have said, I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. We graduated people who can't read and write.
Well, these people are brazen. They say things that obviously don't make any sense, and they do it in part because they pick up the Star Tribune every morning, and they probably sometimes watch the evening news, and they say, "Man, these guys are covering up for us." They're not talking about the fact that most of our kids can't read and can't do math. Maybe we can just brazen it out.
All right, you brought up the Star Trib. Shouldn't the Star Trib be the one that's as concerned as anybody about these numbers? A generation from now, half of the people that might have bought a paper won't buy it because they can't read it, John. They should be screaming, please teach people to read. We write things for a living. And they're not even concerned.
You might think so, Al, but the publisher of the Star Tribune, they hired out of the Tim Walz administration. I mean, this is a seamless effort to continue driving Minnesota to the left.
All right. We're going to go to break a little early. I want to get back and talk about what is or is not going to happen in the next 4 days up there at the Capitol. Let's be honest, not much is going to happen. We'll find out what John thinks. John Hinderaker, president of the American Experiment, right after this.
All the special interests are represented in St. Paul. But who speaks for you? Center of the American Experiment does. Our policy fellows dig into the tough issues that matter to you and offer common sense solutions on education, taxes, crime, and energy. American Experiment is the trusted, nonpartisan voice of Minnesotans like you. We are working every day to make Minnesota a better, safer, more prosperous place. We are American Experiment. Go to americanexperiment.org to learn more.
Achieving your financial goals requires individual planning and a comprehensive approach. At Midwest Money Management, our mission is to provide you with the knowledge, tools, and confidence to feel comfortable financially today and secure about tomorrow. Learn more at MidwestMoneyManagement.com. That's MidwestMoneyManagement.com.
Securities offered through JW Cole Financial Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services offered through JW Cole Advisors Inc., Midwest Money Management, and JW Cole Financial Inc. and JW Cole Advisors Inc. are unaffiliated entities.
don't need to ask him his opinion more than once. Al Travis on The Al Travis Show.
We've got him, John Hinderaker, on with us. John, we're 4 days from the time the Senate and the House are supposed to adjourn on the 19th. You would think this long into a session we'd have some idea where this is going. Can you give me the odds of anything getting done by the 19th, and what happens overall if they don't? What are your thoughts on the session?
Well, we'll see, Al. Keep in mind that the House Democrats boycotted the first 3 weeks of the session, so it got off to a late start. We could use those 3 weeks right now.
Yeah.
This is a budget year. Every other year in the legislature is a budget year. So from the beginning, the budget going forward has always been the big issue for this for 2025. And the thing that's important for our listeners to understand is if you read the Star Tribune and outlets like that, they talk about the looming prospect of a budget deficit in the out years. And what they're talking about in the legislature is, where do we come up with, $300 million or something like that? The fact is we are in a huge budget deficit situation right now. In 2024, the state of Minnesota spent $4.7 billion more than we took in. And this year, 2025, the projection is that we will spend $4.5 billion more than we took in. So why aren't the newspapers full of talk about, oh my gosh, we have this huge budget deficit? The answer is because we are spending down the $17.6 billion surplus that we had just 2 years ago. We are spending that surplus to cover up the fact that we are running a huge budget deficit. Now, why are we running a huge budget deficit? Because the Democrats got their famous trifecta in the 2022 election. They had the governor's office, they controlled both the Minnesota House and the Minnesota Senate, and they went crazy on spending. They increased spending by 10% in 2023, and they increased spending by another 29.5% in a single year last year. It is absolutely shocking. It is completely unsustainable. So what's happened is that we have spent ourselves into this structural deficit situation. And what's happening in the legislature right now is an argument over how exactly we're going to kick the can down the road for another couple of years.
Well, let me ask you, do the people of Minnesota understand what you just said? And I get it. And here's my point. Democrats, this isn't a first. Give out as much as you can. We have $17 billion. Let's go give this out, give it out. And now when we have this deficit that we're having to deal with the tails, now the governor, well, some of these senators as well, saying, what? You're going to take, let's just use health care for illegals. You're going to take health care away from children? 25% of these illegals are children. You're going to take it away from children and put these Republicans in a box for being the grown-ups in the room and say, we can't pay for everything. Star Tribune will write it that way. Do the Republicans have what it takes to hold that line? Because no one should expect us to grow our government by 40% in 2 years, but we did.
Yeah, we did. So we're running a campaign right now. If you go to AmericanExperiment.org, you can send emails to your legislators, and I got to look at it here so I get this exactly right. We call this campaign more taxes. You can't be serious. Our taxes.
Oh, I like that.
Too high already in Minnesota. So if you send the emails that you can send from that website, more taxes, you can't be serious, go to AmericanExperiment.org and click on the tab that says take action. You can do that. So the suburban House Democrats have a coordinated response to our email campaign. They all use the same language. They say tax increases? What tax increases? They'll say currently there is no proposal for a tax increase that has bipartisan support. So what that means is right now the Republicans are blocking the Democrats' efforts to raise taxes even higher. But the House is split exactly evenly now, 67-67. So if a single House Republican crosses over and votes to raise your taxes, that statement will no longer be true. They say there's no tax increase proposal currently that has bipartisan support. In other words, it has my support. We just haven't been able to get a single Republican to join me.
But that, again, let me ask you this. So, Representative Damath, the speaker, she has said no new taxes. Can she hold out if we stop this government, if we got to go into overtime? Does she have what it takes to hold that band of brothers together, those 67? Or do we get a Tim Pawlenty-esque kind of thing where we didn't raise taxes, we just put some fees out there to charge people more?
Well, let me just say, Al, that in hindsight, Tim Pawlenty looks really, really good.
Oh, no.
So that was one time when we actually did keep our spending from just hemorrhaging more and more money.
Point well taken.
The answer to your question, Al, is I don't know. She's got to hold the entire caucus together. All 67 have to stand firm. And if we don't get some new budget agreement by, I think it's July 1, then there will be a, quote, government shutdown, close quote, which of course doesn't really mean that the government shuts down, as we've all seen this play many times before. And, we'll have to see how it plays out.
All right. Fair enough. We'll find out. One last thing quick. I know you guys are following all this fraud stuff. You got fraud calculators and follow-alongsters and how much money's going on the fraud calculator. KARE 11 comes out. There's a new one. I want people to hear about it. Evidently, is with the Housing Stabilization Services with HHS. Medicaid-funded initiative for special folks to be living in their homes. Another fraud deal going on. Just another one of these fraud things. It doesn't tell me the amount of money, but I'm getting just tired of it. It takes nothing to fraud this state. There isn't a program you can't go to, and just making up names, you can make money.
The fraud tracker, the scandal tracker, we call it at AmericanExperiment.org. The scandal tracker is up to at least 27 different fraud scandals. This is only during the Tim Walz administration, too. There were more back in Mark Dayton's era. 27 separate fraud scandals, now totaling, again, conservatively totaled at more than $600 million. Every day, people are stealing money from the taxpayers of Minnesota.
All right, it's a long ways to election time, but I ask you this in all sincerity, John. So just the things we talked about. Kids are graduating, can't read and do math. We've spent more and more money every year on education. It's going the wrong way. Fraud is rampant across the state of Minnesota. They increased our government by 40% in 2 years. Has there ever been a better time for Republicans to try to win a race in the state of Minnesota? Can we do it? Can they do it?
Well, you'd think that the voters would be up in arms about all this and eager to go to the polls and vote for change. I don't know. We Minnesotans are a pretty placid and complacent lot. It takes a lot to get us upset. So will it happen? I don't know.
I think at some point when your children can't read, that's enough to get upset about, when these people are ripping you blind for hundreds of millions of dollars just by making up names on a name-generating computer. And I mean, at some point, folks got to take this serious. One last hit for you, John. How does someone get to AmericanExperiment.org, get tickets for the big show, which is coming up this Saturday? Scott Jennings coming to town. Love this
Today
guy.
is the last day they're available, and you go to AmericanExperiment.org, click on the tab at the top that says Events, and it'll take you, you'll see a page there where you can click on it and go ahead and buy your tickets. It's a fundraiser, so tickets are not cheap, but going out to eat isn't cheap anymore either as far as that goes. So
absolutely.
I encourage our listeners. It's going to be a very, very fun event.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you being here, my friend.
Thank you, Al.
He's John Hinderaker with the American Experiment, AmericanExperiment.org.
All the special